everyone, I'm back again with another cooking video. The last video I did, I asked for some suggestions on what to make next, and of course my mom gets on the comments and says she wants to know what to do with all these pears she has. I think she suggested a tart. So that's what I'm going to do today, because when mom asks, you just gotta. What's cool about pears is that it's really easy to go in either a sweet or savory direction. So I'm going to make one sweet tart and one savory tart, both featuring pears. For the sweet tart, I'm going to make a tarte tatin. If you're not familiar, tarte tatin is kind of like a French apple pie where the fruit is caramelized and the crust is baked over the fruit in a skillet. And then the whole thing is flipped over onto a plate. We're just going to use pears instead of apples for this. I decided to make a tarte tatin because my mom really loves this classic French dessert and she picked the theme for today. We will begin by peeling our pears and cutting them into halves and removing the core. For this dish, I'm using Bartlett and Anjou pears, which are quite sweet and great for baking. Now that our pears are prepped, it's time to start the caramel. We will want to use an oven-safe pan for this. Melt some butter, sugar, and a splash of vanilla extract together. Typically, I would want to start this first and let it go while I prep the pears, but caramel can burn pretty quickly, so we want to keep a watchful eye on this. We're looking for a rich amber color, but don't take it too dark or else you might end up with a bitter caramel. There, that looks good. Take the caramel off the heat and arrange the pears over it. It might be tempting to taste the caramel, but melted sugar is very hot and that's a good way to burn off some taste buds. For that reason, try not to touch the caramel with your fingers while you are laying down the pears. So we'll set that aside and roll out our dough. I made this tart dough earlier out of the Dina DeLuca Food and Wine Cookbook, so that's what I'm going to use. You can also use puff pastry for this, that works perfectly fine, but this particular dough recipe is one of my favorites for pastry. You know what I just realized earlier? I compared a tarte tatin to a French apple pie. Is a tart a pie? But we're supposed to be making tarts. Is a taco a sandwich? We're asking all the thought-provoking questions today. I actually looked up the difference earlier. And the difference between a pie and a tart is it's all in the crust. So pies have a thinner, flaky crust, whereas tarts have a thick, crumbly crust. Pies are also usually served in the dish that they are baked in, whereas tarts are unmolded, and we'll definitely be unmolding the tarte tatin. And considering that this is a tart dough, I think this tarte tatin classifies as a tart. The Tatin sisters can fight me if they want. So we just want to roll this out so that it's big enough to cover the pears in the pan. And then we're going to tuck the edges of the dough around the fruit and make a few slits into the dough to let the steam out as it bakes. Into a 350-degree oven it goes. It will bake for about 30 minutes or until the crust is golden brown. So that looks about done. We'll let that cool for 5 minutes or so. You can see there is a bit of liquid here from the pears, so we'll try to invert this very carefully. If you have a turkey baster, you could also extract the juices and glaze the pears with that. Look at that! So pretty. Traditionally this is served with creme fraiche, but powdered sugar or vanilla ice cream would work great on this too. On to our savory tart. The sweetness of the pears really go well with salty flavors and creamy textures. I think brie and prosciutto would highlight the pears really well. I'm actually going to use puff pastry as the base this time as a crisp and flaky vessel for all the ingredients. I have this sheet of puff pastry and I will divide it in half to make 2 tartlets. Next, I will score a border around each piece to create some edges. Thinly slice a pear and the brie. Brush the edges of the puff pastry with an egg wash and alternate brie and pears within the border. Bake at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. Meanwhile, I will make a red wine reduction to drizzle over the tarts. This will add some sweetness and acidity to tie all the flavors together. In a saucepan, reduce down a cup of red wine with some sugar, black peppercorns, and bay leaf to a syrupy consistency. Now that the tarts are out of the oven, we will top with some fresh arugula and rolls of prosciutto. Drizzle on our red wine reduction and it's ready to serve. And there you have it, sweet and savory takes on a pear tart, because life's too short to not eat pastry. I hope you enjoyed these recipes and I'll see you next time.